but I'm getting it. Hi guys, how are you? Welcome to Christ Conquered Conversations. My name is Sybil Gonzalez, and I am so honored and proud to be part of this movement. As you see, this lovely man right next to me is Boby. I know him very well, and I could talk about him for hours. He's a great guy, all around great person, as he would say. But I'm actually going to have him introduce himself to you guys. So, Boby, tell me about yourself, about your passions, about your recent achievements.
Oh, thank you so much, Sybil. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So a bit about myself. I'm a 21-year-old college sophomore. I just finished my studies at CCM, County College of Morrison, New Jersey, transferred to University of Virginia to study economics. I took 2 gap years after high school, spent 8 months in India, about 10 months in Chicago for my second gap year, and worked with a couple organizations like Global Citizen Year or City or Chicago. And most recently, I was the vice president of student government at County College of Morris. So, and with Sybil, that's how Sybil and I know each other. So that's some of my achievements and a bit about myself. And passions as well. Sorry. Some passions. I'm very passionate about civic engagement. I think it is the great equalizer and is the antidote to complacency. So anything that I can do to get people to be more civically engaged just makes me really happy.
Awesome. That's great. Now, again, thank you for joining the movement, Boby. You just proved to us that you're an amazing person, so that's awesome. For those who do not know what C.R.I.E.S Conquered is, C.R.I.E.S Conquered is a movement that is all about bringing awareness and solutions on issues related to culture, race, inequity, equality, sexism that are driving high rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide among Gen Z. Now, Boby, how did you get into contact with C.R.I.E.S Conquered? Like, how did that work?
I think you put me in touch, Sybil.
I did. And why did you agree doing it?
Well, honestly, I mean, it's very important to me. I think right now we're seeing a once in a lifetime, hopefully not once in a lifetime, but once in a generation movement. And anything that I can do to support from the back end, I would love to be involved.
Awesome.
That's why I joined, and amazing people involved.
Hey, that's awesome. All right, so I actually have a couple questions to ask you. We'll kick it off with this one. What are your views about racism and the current state of what's going on with the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement?
So, I mean, I did mention before it's a once. I think hopefully it's not, but it seems that it's a once in a generation event that is happening. Hopefully, this is more sustainable. Obviously, like any other person in the world who is sane and is moral, I think racism is obviously bad, and I think individualism is the opposite of racism. Not to group and stereotype and generalize a person just by the virtue of their ethnic background or by their color of their skin or their religion. So, and really seeing them and noticing them for who they are, what they like, what they do, who they are as a person. And again, I think I really hope that this movement right now is sustainable in terms of civic engagement and people voting, and as well as using why we all coming together, which is police brutality and racism and George Floyd and countless others, really using that as a funnel for other civic engagement projects and nonprofit projects to really mobilize different communities and young people.
Awesome. I actually had a second part question to that. It's a personal one. How do you feel about the marches? Like, do you feel like there's a difference between marches and protests? And what is your view of that? Interesting.
Yeah, my personal view is that I think they're I mean, honestly, it's a very, very intricate question that I haven't thought much about. But from my own perspective, I think protests are in response to years and years of group memory and extreme generalization and marginalization, right? And it's a psychological need to be able to release that somehow. And to be able to protest, it's a form of liberation. You're liberating yourself as a person. But making a clear distinction between, demonstrations and protests, because protests could be peaceful, and perhaps more of the, graffitiing perhaps, or an example that someone used recently for me was burning down trash cans. I personally don't equate that to the general population of people who are protesting in peace. So I think there's a clear distinction, but it's understood. It's understandable why it's happening.
Makes sense. Yeah. I only ask that because I've had recent debates and talks with a couple of my friends about what is a protest, what is a march, what you should go, shouldn't go. So I just wanted to know what you had to say. But thank you so much. Now speaking about civic engagement, which is what I realize you're very much about. You joined the movement because you were concerned about lack of civil engagement in our generation. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my microphone was muted for a second, but civic engagement could take many forms. I mean, if you're doing something for the purpose of a civic development or social development, I say that's civic project. For example, voter registration could be a civic project. Starting an organization in your hometown and recruiting people to work with other organizations in your town and being like the marketer for these three different organizations, recruiting people could be a civic project. Working with your mayor's office to find a better solution to make people of the community feel more integrated and more comfortable in the community's civic project. And it doesn't have to always take a form of a blatant project, a very obvious project. It could just be you and a couple of friends getting together and working on something that you're passionate about that's going to benefit the overall community.
All right, sounds good. Oh, is that an echo? Can you hear me? It sounded terrible. Okay. Maybe I should. Everything good? Does the sound? I think there was an issue with sound. We're good? Okay. Well, then thank you for that response. And now kind of going back to, I know you love economics. That's really your major. This question has to do a little bit about that. So economics are predicting that Generation Z and millennials will suffer for some of the greatest economic hardships due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which will rob us of career-defining education and employment opportunities. Now, as a college student, what are your greatest concerns related to education and employment opportunities for our generation?
I'll start with the employment because it's easier. So I'm not an expert. I'm not an economics expert. I don't know all the facts, so I can't specifically comment on whether there's going to be a huge difference in a huge long-term difference between employment and well-being of economic well-being. But I think that it's not really. The market. Businesses are frozen. Right, it's not like money is wiped away like in 2008 with the housing crash. So I'm not super, nervous about finding a job in 4 or 5 years. But obviously, when there is a market concern, I feel like the people who have less access to opportunities are the ones who will suffer the most, unfortunately. So perhaps that could mean that. For me personally, that could mean, okay, there's always going to be someone better that's going to a better school. Obviously, they're going to get the job that they're applying for. So I'm a bit concerned about that, but not so much to the point where I don't think I'm going to get a job. I think I'll be fine. I think other people will be fine. Personally, I'll make sure to just network and just get good grades and be involved in campus with civic engagement projects. And for education, I think that I'm currently in the process of transferring to University of Virginia from a community college, which is so much more cheaper. The community college is so much cheaper, and I didn't have to deal with housing and all that. So I talked to some students who are in the process of transferring, and the biggest issues that they have is that some of them don't have a job. They've been furloughed. And this is not unique to University of Virginia. This happens all around with housing. The people who don't have jobs and have been severely affected by COVID, or in the past that they weren't really well off, they didn't have a lot of money. The way the housing works is that it's totally random. So colleges rather pay you financial aid, and you live somewhere else than give you a place to stay and just make that process of getting a place on campus very random. So I think that again, like there's hidden costs with finding housing off grounds that I think that COVID particularly could affect that for students, particularly marginalized groups and people who are underserved.
Yeah, no, agreed. 100% agreed. I see that you're passionate about recruiting others to social service and creating pathways for people to get more involved in the communities. How would you recommend that our generation becomes more involved in our communities to really make an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with just being a person that other people want to approach and ask your opinion. So that means, there's certain virtues that you must display. Just being compassionate, being very understanding, and be taking a step back sometimes. So there's certain virtues that you should have. So you're a type of person that people just come and they think that I want to start this project. Who do I reach out to? Okay, Sybil or is a person I'll definitely reach out to. That's my prescription. And the second thing is just being in touch with people. So learning more about your community, reaching out to the mayor's office, reaching out to different organizations in your hometown, whether it's the food pantry, whether it's the Key Club in high school or Kiwanis in your local community, the food pantry. Just asking them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And they'll pretty much tell you what they need. So that's pretty much the first step. The two things that I would prescribe to people.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, and I like that you obviously reach out to your first line of networking, which is like friends, family, and then obviously reaching out to the bigger picture, bigger people. I think that's a great way of attacking that subject. Moving on from a different subject, but same on the same lines. This past weekend, K-pop fans and TikTok teens dominated the headlines by claiming victory and sabotaging Donald Trump's Tesla rally by ordering a huge amount of tickets to inflate the projected crowd numbers. Regardless of our political views, there's no denying the power and impact of our generation. Do you think that this momentum will transfer to more members of Gen Z voting in November? Or are you concerned about the efforts to suppress votes, particularly among the communities of color?
Those are I think it's a three-parted question. First, I'll say, would it be sustainable? Would it recruit more members of the Gen Z population to be civically engaged? Absolutely. I think it's beautiful. If it was my choice, I would definitely integrate some sort of badge you can include on your Facebook or your Snapchat or different social media. Hey, I voted, not just a post, but like, this is what I did. It's part of your profile. That would certainly create a more of a social standard for our generation. That civic engagement and just being involved is the bare minimum. And the second part of your question was, can you remind me, please? What was the second part of your question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Are you concerned about the efforts to suppress votes, particularly among the communities of color?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone should be very concerned because that's a direct violation of civil rights.
Yeah.
It's in direct violation of civil rights. No matter who you are, what party you support, that's definitely something that you should be concerned about because voter suppression is very important. Once that happens, the government's not working for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you mentioned having almost like I voted on like your profile, almost like a picture, because I know right now everyone's profile picture is the fist, and I think that's moving. I think it's effective. Maybe to some people it's not. I feel like it is. So doing something like just like that, I think that's a great idea. Now, despite all the bad things that are happening today, we have to remain hopeful and inspired as a generation. What words of encouragement would you give to a young person who is struggling with anxiety or depression?
So I would just say, based on the intro psychology class I took last semester, there's definitely a difference between people who feel anxious and people who have anxiety syndrome. So I think that if you are displaying any symptoms, any signs of anxiety syndrome, you should definitely be very comfortable reaching out to someone, an expert, and getting the help you need. There shouldn't be a stigma around it for some communities, but there is in some communities, unfortunately. So just reach out. Your mental health is more important than anything else. The second thing is for people who have anxiety sometimes or feel anxious. I personally meditate. So I try to meditate once a day, just for 15 minutes, just not thinking about anything and just blank my mind, just focus on my breathing and pretend I'm on the beach without any thoughts going through my head. It is definitely so relaxing. You feel fresh after you do it. Try to do it in the morning or in the afternoon, maybe after you ate lunch. It's very enjoyable. And the other thing that I would say is just do stuff that you enjoy, and try new things. like, if you really feel like you want to go out for a drive or you want to go for a walk, if there's a part of you that says, I really want to do it, that'll be really cool, it'll be really fun to feel the air on my skin, walking outside the breeze. And then there's a part of you like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Just get yourself out of bed. You feel so accomplished doing it. And put yourself in uncomfortable situations because you grow and you surprise yourself. Those are the three things.
That's awesome. I was actually going to ask about meditation. I need to try that sometime soon, so let me know about that. But another question I just wonder, is it a good thing to meditate before you sleep if someone has sleeping problems? Does that work?
I have no idea. I'm not an expert. I mean, it would make sense because you're blanking your thoughts. Depends on what type of meditation as well. There's many types, but I think maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'll probably use that tip. I'll give it a shot and I'll let you know how that works. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for being part of the Christ Conquered movement and for lending your voice to drive change. So thank you, Boby, for being the voice that really drove change out here. And for those who are watching, please share this live link and join the movement by going to ChrisConquered.com/join. The link will be in the comments. In the meantime, we encourage you to do your part to drive positive change. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Sybil, again.
Okay.
Be well, do well, be safe.
Okay. See you guys. Have a good rest of your day.